Hey guys, this is Anon with a very slow play video today that was recently requested on the forums. I put up a poll of what you wanted to see next, and this won the vote. I'm going to start out by saying that these are not going to necessarily be the most fun and exciting battles you've ever seen, but that's not really the point of them. The point is to emphasize patience and just keep in mind that you don't have to force yourself into bad decisions. You've got 7 whole minutes to fight these battles, and if you find yourself in a situation like this, sometimes you're better off just waiting for red to make the mistakes and you to take advantage of it. So in this first game, I'm in the M46 Patton. I'm platooned with Matt Harp of Storm, and we're on Winter Malinovka. And I can see pretty quickly, based on the makeup of the two teams, that we're not going to do super well all the way up at Mill. We don't have a lot of armor, specifically turret armor, compared to the red team. So once I see how they start moving, I tell Matt, and we start to just come up to this crest, more of this hold down area, and so we can kind of see where this battle goes without getting ourselves overexposed and wrecked. So like I said, this is going to be a very slow play battle, but it's really about emphasizing awareness in this and kind of keeping an eye on what's happening. I also want to apologize. I know the audio is off on this. The game audio is off on this battle. I don't know what happened. I think I lagged on my Twitch stream. But anyway, so we can see that we have pretty much the entire red team up at Mill, which emphasizes why I didn't want to go up there in this particular game. We weren't going to do super well. I mean, we're already dropping a little bit, but we have a little bit more advantage being back in this spot. So I'm picking my shots very, very carefully, and we're also grouped up really tight. And when you're in a situation like this, when I'm ready to shoot again, I zoom in, take my shot, and then instantly zoom back out so I can see where my teammates are. I don't want to block them. So I see the 44 push up on the minimap, and this is the first good example of rushing when you necessarily shouldn't. He was trying to flank us, got noticed really quickly. He does get a couple shots on me, which good for him, but we're also able to take him out right here and get a gun, a really solid gun, out of the battle fairly quickly. So there we're now only down by 1 tank, and it's turning the tides a little bit. So I use the moving that direction to try and get a shot on the IS-3. Real small window there, so it doesn't work very well. And I want to make sure that the red team at no point feels like they can push us. So I turn back to keep my gun there. That way, anytime a red tank peeks out, we make sure we have shells going down range, because if it starts to lull, they may get the opinion that they could push us, and that's when we're going to be in trouble. So back to kind of slow playing this a little bit. Picking shots. I'm really starting to become aware of this IS-3 because he has got a laser lock on me. I'm going to try and poke out here and get a shot on the top of his turret, but everybody clearly on that side is looking at me. So now I have to play much carefully. He's reloading, so it lets me instead take a shot on the Patton. But just because of the focus that the IS-3 is having on me, is going to make me have to play a little bit differently. This is also a great time to talk about. A lot of times when these games get into stalemates, kind of where we're at right now, where no one's doing a ton of damage, don't have a lot of shots, people get antsy and tend to push. I could drop down and push that defender and E50 on the other side, but as you can see, I still have tanks focused on me. That IS-3 is looking at me. I would drop into low ground and have to pop up to kill those two tanks if I wanted to flank, and it's a larger possibility that I would die. Instead, I'm holding them here. So I'm not going to rush. It's just not a good time for that. Instead, I'm going to just bide my time, keep poking my head out so that they know I'm here, shoot shells when I can, but I want them to make the mistake. I don't want to be the one that makes the mistake and costs this game. So I'm just working back and forth. I don't want to sit still either in case I accidentally get into a position where they can get a fully aimed shot on me. So I'm just dancing around, keeping an eye on everything. I see the E50 move, so I poke out trying to get that shot. And again, here's an example of what the slow play does. He gets a little antsy because he's not getting shots on me. So the Patton moves up, tries to get us, so we shoot him. I can see the E50 moving in, and able to turn around and shoot him also. There was no reason to rush there. If you're going to flank in that situation, you should probably go longer. just so you're not spotted the whole way. We saw him a mile away and made it kind of easy to deal with. So again, we're down by 1 tank, and just kind of hoping for that next mistake to happen. I see that defender's starting to poke out quite a bit for shots, so I stick my head out hoping to sneak one in on him. Doesn't quite work out. I'm also kind of noticing at this point we have a full health high as 8 behind me. Been mostly concerned about red, so we're trying to get him to move up because he's clearly been sitting back a little bit too far, but if he's getting shots, I'm not too concerned about it. I see that IS-3 just fired, and he's been my major concern, so sneak up so I can get rid of him. He had been focusing on me any chance he got, so I wanted to, getting rid of him gave me a lot more freedom in how I can move. And now I'm watching the defender because, like I said before, he keeps sneaking out. And so I'm kind of hoping once he's loaded, he'll sneak out again, and I can try and get that shot into him. I know the Pershing and 54 aren't moving anywhere because they really haven't the whole game. I know exactly where they are. Those are the tanks that we're going to have to eventually rush. And the defender does exactly what I want. And so we can get that shot in there. And like I said, so these 2 tanks have been playing much more in the way I'm describing, that they've stayed back waiting for us to make the mistakes. Unfortunately, their team made a few more than we did. So now I know that they're probably not going to come out and give us the easy shot, so I'm going to have to actually start pushing them. Start to work my way up and then get my platoon mate, so now I know I don't have as much help because that IS-8's been playing extremely passively. So, but it also helps that I hadn't burned my adrenaline yet, so lets me kind of come up here and now work these last 2 tanks for the win. So, like I said, that wasn't necessarily the sexiest battle any of us have ever seen, but I wasn't going to be the one that made the mistakes for our team, and just kind of let them do it instead for us. So it turned into a really successful victory, and something I can obviously can be proud of. So just another example of a way to play that game. Alright, so now we're going to switch over to a similar type of game. I'm platooned with D. Dombeck of Storm, and we're in our Type 62 Dragons on Middleburg. We are actually low tier, we're in a tier 9 battle, so instantly we're going to have to be a little more cautious as it is. And actually I'm going to pick on a D here a little bit. He later in the game, and we end up talking about it afterwards, but he makes the mistake that I was chatting about in the last battle, and kind of giving up the high ground and rushing in when you get impatient instead of letting red make the mistakes for us, and he pays the price for it, even though we end up still winning the battle. So, like I said, he's going to be a little bit of a goat here. Hopefully he doesn't mind. But we still get some good examples. So I pop up here just to spot a little bit. The heavies are coming up, which is fantastic. I didn't call it at the beginning since I was low tier. They tend not to listen to you quite as much when you're low tier, but luckily we have a solid player that made that call for us. And I'm just hanging out. I've been up here long enough where I'm pretty sure they aren't coming. So instead I flip around and to poke around this side, because it kind of will let me see if there's some slow heavies moving around late. Since I don't see anything there, do an about face, because I want to I'm expecting the heavies to come poking out on the other side of town, and I want to be able to get some shots on them there. So coming up into this area to spot, absolutely no reason to give up the high ground. Now our entire team is able to shoot down on them anytime they poke their heads out, which is why hills are so important on this map. So instantly we can pretty much tell that this is going to be a long battle of attrition here, because they're going to be trying to guard themselves down in town. We're going to be sniping from the hills. So I swing around because our heavies have been spotted pretty heavily, and I figure there's some guys that are going to be a little bit more exposed from this angle. And sure enough, here's an IS that's starting to poke out. And that T-43 that we saw to begin with, he's probably protected from the heavies where he is, but by changing the angle, I'm able to do it. I also can see on my minimap that D is pushing all the way around the backside of town. Like I said, he could see the minimap too and saw where they were going to be, and decides to go flank them and give up position, which isn't really necessary in this battle, because we have this high ground and this protection. We're going to be really hard to spot up in these hills. so I'm not going to push it. Get into the first kind of slow battle with this T-54. Not a lot of shots to be had here because he's hiding himself well, but can sneak a few shots in here and there, which is kind of what I'm going for. Again, just kind of letting it play out. D's pretty extended down in town, but the one good thing that happens from that is it kind of shakes them up a little bit. They have to move around and reposition because there's a tank behind them. So it does let them reposition a little bit and let us get a few more shots. So taking a few on that Tiger here, but again, no reason to push. I could probably run around to the far left side and get behind this 54, but it would also leave me extremely exposed and take the gun out of the game. So instead, I'm just trying to work some of these weak spots. That's a 1 in a million shot right there on the top of the T-54. I know it's a weak spot, and I'm shooting heat at it, but it's not a shot that's going to happen very often. So either way, I'm just trying to whittle him down a little bit, or at least make him nervous so he moves. And see there, I know that just from shifting a little bit, I've probably got that upper plate. Again, just keeping an eye on. If I had seen any of the tanks start to flank around, then I would have turned around to support our flank, but since they keep poking out, my goal with this STI is actually just to keep him tracked for our team, because I don't think I can pen him from this angle, but I managed to find the sweet spot there, kind of at that drive wheel, and I can keep him perma-tracked, and I don't do damage with it every single time because that's a really small window to hit, but am slowly able to whittle him down, which is also obviously a pretty gigantic tier 9 tank and threat to work on. So my role here is a little bit different too, keeping in mind that I'm a low tier 7 in a tier 9 battle. Really anything you get out of a 7 is usually a bonus when you're 2 tiers down, so I'm much more valuable taking this big gun out of the match. And I actually feel a little bad for him here. I'm pretty sure I've never even been spotted. There finally gets a spot on me, and I hang in to take that shot because of the value of taking out that target. So now 1 versus 4, totally different game. Not a big deal to go ahead and push in to try and finish him off. But like I said, this is, again, not a, my lack of driving skills there for a second, not the sexiest game you'll ever see, but doing our job, taking time, and making sure we get that win and take some of the big tanks out of the game as that low tier. Nice mastery there. Obviously low damage for the dragon, but again, it was a tier 9 battle, and I did probably most of my damage on tier 9 tanks, so. Okay, and back with one last battle here. I am actually running solo in my Type 59 on Himmelsdorf. This is a different kind of patience. I'm going to be moving around the map quite a bit more, but the patience comes more from choosing my engagements and deciding when and how I should move out of situations than necessarily just being in the thick of it the entire time. So a lot more action than the first 2 games, but still taking a lot of time. So I am going to start here on rails because I'm in a medium. If I'm in a medium, I pretty much always want to start this direction. I know a lot of people talk about going to the other side of the map, but for me, it's much harder I think it's much harder to protect your tank on that side. So I would rather be in here where there's a lot more cover to deal with. So instantly run into 2 tanks while I'm tracked in my side scrape. See a third pop up, so I'm already starting to wonder if this is necessarily a good choice. But I've got a nice side scrape going. Now we've got a 4th tank popping up, and I've pretty much decided that this isn't a good idea. I'm just trying to kind of gauge this Panther and see if I'm going to be able to save him or not. But the surround is starting to happen, so I'm going to slowly work my way out. He's obviously not going to make it because he kept his face out too long. And I also peeked to see what our team was doing, and they're on the other side. So obviously going to take some shots to get out of here. That's just kind of what happens when you run into an entire team. But I'm also not going to run away necessarily too far. I see we have an AFK at spawn 3, sorry, and then our team is starting to show up. So I'm really just relocating to give myself better shots and then to kind of get their eyes off of me a little bit. So first tank I notice is the 44. That's not really going to work. So I'm just kind of gauging my shots here and taking my time trying to figure out what I'm going to be able to shoot without necessarily taking too much damage. Honestly, at this point in the game, just seeing where our team is versus their team and being down 2 tanks, I kind of assume this is a loss. Just one of those battles that happens that we get a little separated. But instead I'm just kind of slowly work the spots. But I'm also kind of thinking at this point that, being down 3, this isn't going to necessarily be a viable way to fight the entire map. I'm probably going to have to run and relocate again. So I'm making sure I don't get stuck out to a position where I can't do that. Rolling back, trying to get just a little bit hull down and seeing who's going to kind of walk in front of my gun, because there's plenty of tanks left at this point. Not really anything to shoot there. Looking for the defender, don't see that. So I'm trying to roll around to the other side here because it's also going to give me a good corridor to run away if I need to, which at this point I'm 100% sure I'm going to have to run away. And again, honestly, I'm just trying to do the best I can for the team because it looks like this is going to be a loss. Down now 5-2, which is moving better, but we've got a one-shot 43, so I extend myself a little bit to get that shot and luckily can back up from the defender. Teammate goes, it's now 1 versus 4, so now the goal is to try and separate these 4 as much as possible. So I'm going to turn tail, run away. I've been able to conserve a lot of my health, so I know it's a slim possibility if they split up. Usually when I run like this, I'm hoping that at least one will go to cap because it lets me know where they are, and it'll also let me watch the count and see how many are there versus how many are still in the field. The Type's also not the fastest tank, so I'm glad I kind of stuck to the edges while my team was unfortunately getting killed so that I could actually get away from there. So the goal is to circle all the way back around. They've got tanks of different speeds, so I'm hoping if I flank all the way around the map, I can pick off some of the slowest ones. Didn't realize their Sue was AFK, so this is actually really convenient that I run into him, but it's also something you have to be careful of. I'm shooting him, but I'm also moving forward, especially here now that I've got him down to a one-shot, because this means they know where I am now. He spotted him for the team, even though he's dead. And so it's got me a little concerned because they know which direction I'm headed. But so that's why I head into the rail cars, because just like it was at the beginning, I want to make sure that if I run into tanks and it's more than I can handle, I can bail back out again. So see both the Defender and the T-34. So like I thought was going to happen, they knew where I am and are starting to close in. So I'm just going to give myself a little bit of cushion between me and these other tanks, and I'm hoping also giving some time that T-34 will run out ahead of the Defender, so that I can get a little bit of separation. I don't know where the T-29 is at this point, but I'm expecting to see him. It works out. The 34 moves up, give him a nice little love tap, but then the Defender comes in. I'm just trying to turn that front plate at the last second. I knew when he's going to fire. To get away. I also notice as I'm swinging by here that T-29 looks stock. Someone put a T-28 in my way here. And this is where kind of the carnage was happening earlier in the game. Unfortunately, they get my driver and gunner, but I'm 100% focused on the Defender right now, and trying to bait shots a little bit, because that T-29 being stock, I know is going to bounce a lot of shells, even off my back. If I can keep turning and don't give him a direct shot at my exact back half, then I should be able to bounce a few of those shots. So he's not really the threat here. I'm also pretty concerned, since I've got all the damage, I still think I'm probably going to lose this engagement, but now it pays off. I'm able to take out the Defender, and I can turn on the T-29. I'm not 100% sure because it's been so long since had run that T-29 stock. I don't know if with Pramo if he can pen my front plate, but I don't think so. So I'm just trying to keep it angled to him. Finally can get that healed, my 2 crewmates. So again, as he comes forward, I can't really avoid it in the situation I'm in, but I'm just trying to keep a nice angle on him, put myself in a good position, and now I can push a little bit harder. So, like I said, I know this battle has had a lot more action than the others, and but there's still a lot of patience, I think, that went into it, and getting out of the bad situation that happened at the very start of the battle, and then relocating multiple times, separating yourself, and hoping that that the team will separate and give you a chance. Obviously, we've all been in battles where that doesn't work out. This time it did. But it's all about putting yourself in the best position to win, not letting red dictate when you have the opportunity to kind of dictate that battle. So hope we learned something from this. Obviously not the type of battles that are going to happen every day, but good things to keep in mind and maybe how to handle some of those situations. So thanks a lot.